The boardroom of Stratton Industries looked nothing like a place where billion-dollar decisions were made. That morning, it felt more like an ICU, cold, silent, and filled with people waiting for either a miracle or a death sentence. A long glass table stretched across the room, reflecting strained faces and trembling hands. Expensive suits, polished shoes, and scattered coffee cups did nothing to hide the rising fear in the air. CEO Andrew Stratton stood near the head of the table, but he didn't feel like a leader today. His shoulders were tight, his eyes red from a sleepless night, and his heartbeat was loud enough for him to hear in his ears. In exactly 10 minutes, global investors, some flown in from Dubai, some from New York, would walk through the door expecting a flawless quarterly presentation, but their entire system had crashed overnight. The IT department stood huddled in a corner like soldiers facing a losing battle. Screens were frozen, files were corrupted, and even backup servers refused to load. Every passing second felt heavier than the last. Andrew wiped the sweat from his forehead and turned to the IT manager. "How long will it take?" he asked, though his voice already carried hopelessness. The manager swallowed hard. "Sir, the system isn't responding at all. We can't even access the locked directories. It could take hours. Maybe more." Hours. The word echoed in Andrew's brain like a death bell. Hours meant losing investor trust. Hours meant stocks crashing. Hours meant headlines that would destroy everything he had built. He pressed his hands on the table to steady himself. Then knock, knock. Every head turned sharply. Standing at the door was Marcus, the night shift janitor. Tall, quiet, African-American, holding a mop and a small cleaning cart. He looked confused, almost apologetic for interrupting. "Sir," Marcus said softly, "I didn't mean to disturb, but I overheard you're having trouble with the system." Several executives exchanged irritated looks. This was not the time. Andrew forced a tired sigh. "Yes, but it's complicated. We have professionals." He turned back to the IT team, voice cracking. "Please, make it fast. I'm begging you." But Marcus didn't leave. He stepped forward, eyes calm, voice steady. If you'd like, sir," he said, "I can take a look." The room froze. No one moved. A janitor? Offering to fix a multi-million-dollar server crash? But Andrew had no time left. "Fine," he whispered. "At this point, I'll take help from anyone." Marcus nodded once and walked toward the failing system. Marcus moved quietly toward the frozen computers, the soft click of his shoes on the polished floor echoing in the tense boardroom. He didn't speak, didn't hesitate. He simply assessed the screens with an almost intimate familiarity. The IT team shifted uncomfortably, their pride warring with desperation. None of them had imagined that a janitor could even understand the severity of the situation, let alone offer a solution. He pulled up a chair and sat down with a calm precision that contrasted sharply with the chaos around him. The air seemed to thicken as he rested his hands on the keyboard, his fingers poised but not yet moving. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, as if listening to the computers, reading their invisible pulse. When he finally typed, it wasn't random keystrokes. It was deliberate, methodical, and astonishingly fast. Lines of code scrolled across the screens like a symphony only he could conduct. Marcus navigated corrupted directories, bypassed locked files, and isolated the glitch that had frozen the entire system. The IT manager, hovering nearby, leaned in closer. "Wait, is he—" "Yes," Marcus interrupted softly, without looking up. "The server isn't actually down. It's trapped in a recursive loop caused by an incomplete patch from last night. Whoever installed it didn't lock the dependencies correctly." Silence fell over the room. Blank stares, dropped jaws. The board members couldn't believe their ears. Andrew's eyes widened. "You understand this?" Marcus finally looked up, his expression calm and unapologetic. "I used to be a lead systems architect, 15 years. Life circumstances forced me to step away from that career, but the knowledge never left me." A murmur rippled through the boardroom. The janitor was not just a janitor, he was a genius in disguise. Without another word, Marcus continued his work. Beep after beep, lines of corrupted code healed themselves. Locked files reappeared, presentations, investor documents, and financial reports all restored in record time. Each command he executed seemed effortless, but the results were miraculous. The IT manager, once dismissive, leaned back in astonishment. How is this possible? Marcus simply shrugged, a small smile playing on his lips. Sometimes the world hides talent in places it doesn't look. Minutes passed, but to everyone watching it felt like an eternity. Then, finally, the last file restored, the final green light blinking on the main server. Marcus leaned back, satisfied. "It's done," he said quietly. The room remained frozen. The CEO, executives, and IT staff all stared at him, speechless. Not one person dared to break the silence. Marcus, the man they had ignored, had just saved the company. The investors walked into the boardroom minutes later, completely unaware of the morning's near catastrophe. The air was crisp, the lights bright, and the polished screens reflected graphs, charts, and presentations running seamlessly. What had been chaos an hour ago was now flawless order, and the investors were visibly impressed. They murmured among themselves, nodded approvingly, and occasionally whispered words like impressive and well-prepared. But amidst the smooth operation, one presence stood out. In the corner of the room, Marcus, the janitor turned savior, stood quietly with his mop propped against the wall. He didn't seek recognition. He didn't boast. He simply watched, almost invisible, as the company he had saved from disaster executed the presentation perfectly. Andrew Stratton, however, could not ignore him. His chest tightened, and a sense of pride mixed with relief surged through him. He cleared his throat and raised his voice. "Before we continue," Andrew began, the room immediately growing silent, "there's someone I need to acknowledge." All eyes turned toward Marcus. The investors blinked, slightly confused. The executives shifted uncomfortably. Marcus's face remained calm, almost embarrassed, as though he had no idea what was coming. "This man," Andrew continued, gesturing toward Marcus, "saved Stratton Industries from a complete system failure just minutes before your arrival. While our IT team struggled, he restored every critical file, every presentation, every financial report, faster than any of us could imagine." Whispers of disbelief spread across the room. The CFO's hand trembled as he held his pen. The COO adjusted his tie, trying to process what he had just heard. Marcus shook his head slightly. I was just trying to help," he murmured. "No," Andrew interrupted firmly, walking toward him. "You did more than help. You reminded all of us of something we had forgotten. Talent isn't always visible. Brilliance doesn't wear a suit or carry a title. Sometimes it comes quietly, in places we never expect." The boardroom was utterly silent. The gravity of the moment sank in. Then Andrew extended his hand. "Marcus," he said warmly, "I'd like to offer you a full-time position as Senior Systems Architect, a salary to match your expertise, and a chance to lead a team again, if you want it." Marcus blinked, overwhelmed. He had spent years unseen, overlooked, dismissed. And now the CEO himself was offering him a future he thought was long gone. I don't know what to say," Marcus whispered. "Say yes," the IT manager encouraged, awestruck. Marcus looked around at the room filled with applause, nods, and admiration. For the first time in years he felt seen. "Then yes," he said softly, a small smile breaking across his face. The room erupted in cheers. A janitor had just become the hero of Stratton Industries. And from that moment, nothing would ever be the same. 2 months later, Stratton Industries looked different. The hallways still smelled of polished wood and coffee. The fluorescent lights still reflected on the sleek floors. But the energy in the building had shifted. Employees moved with a renewed sense of purpose and respect. There was laughter, collaboration, recognition for effort, no matter who delivered it. And in the midst of this subtle revolution walked Marcus, no longer just a janitor. His ID badge read Senior Systems Architect, and his tailored shirt and polished shoes gave him an appearance that matched the authority he now held. Employees who had once ignored him or barely nodded in passing now greeted him warmly, some even pausing to ask his opinion on complex IT issues. Marcus had transformed the company's entire technology infrastructure. He had rebuilt the servers from the ground up, strengthened cybersecurity, and trained the IT team to handle crises with confidence. But perhaps the most significant change was cultural. Employees began to notice talent and potential in places they had previously overlooked. Cleaning staff were treated with respect, interns were encouraged to voice ideas, and executives were reminded daily that brilliance does not always come wearing a suit. One crisp afternoon, Andrew Stratton joined Marcus on the rooftop for coffee. The city stretched below them, sunlight bouncing off skyscrapers, painting the scene golden. Andrew sipped his cup and looked at Marcus with a mixture of gratitude and reflection. "You know," Andrew began, "I keep thinking about that morning, when everything went wrong and you just stepped in." Marcus smiled faintly. "I was doing what I could. It's what anyone should do." "No," Andrew said, shaking his head. "You did more than fix a system. You reminded all of us of the value in seeing people for who they are, not what they wear. You reminded us that greatness often hides where we least expect it." Marcus chuckled softly. "Life has a strange sense of irony. One day you're cleaning floors. The next day you're rebuilding a corporation." Andrew raised his coffee cup. "To second chances," Marcus raised his as well, "and to noticing talent, no matter where it hides." They clinked cups gently, the sound echoing across the rooftop. Marcus gazed at the city below, a mixture of pride, relief, and hope swelling in his chest. The same hands that had once wielded a mop now typed commands that could change the fate of a company. For the first time in years, Marcus felt truly visible, truly valued. The boardroom that had once gone silent at his movements now celebrated him, and he had earned a place where his talent could shine every single day. He wasn't just a janitor anymore. He was a leader, a mentor, and a symbol of the power of unseen potential. And this time, no one would ever overlook him again.